Hello folks, Matthew Ventures here. Today I wanted to give you a brief update presentation on the game I'm working on, Headhunters. So if you've been a fan of this YouTube channel for a while, you may have seen my previous announcements or devlogs on this game. It's a game that's been a passion project for me over the last 3 years, and basically the reason why I'm doing this presentation is because I volunteered or was invited to present my game alongside with some other New York game developers at an event later today. And tonight I'm going to be doing this presentation. So this is, I thought, a good way to share the presentation with my audience as well, in addition to getting a little bit of practice before the big presentation. So I'm going to run through it. It's supposed to be 10 minutes. I'm pretty confident I'm going to go over time, so I'll just cut it out when I do the official presentation. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So my name is Matthew Ventures. I grew up as a game developer on Long Island, and I went to school in California, and now I'm back here in the New York area. I currently live in Jersey City, but the reason why I am excited to be doing a presentation in New York is because I'm moving soon for a job opportunity to California. So this is one of the last times I can really, I guess, share with the game community here, and I'm excited to do that. So in this presentation, I'll be talking about Headhunters, which has been a passion project for the last 3 years. I've been working on and off, sort of moonlighting or working in the weekends. And it's still very much in production, but with that being said, I've learned a few things along the way, and I think it might be entertaining or educational for people to kind of see the process I've gone through so far. So first, a little about me. This is a silly photo of me, and here's some of the projects I've worked on before. Yes, I am an indie game developer, but I've also worked, or I've been privileged to have a career as well in the AAA game development space. So as my day job, some of the games I've contributed to include Fortnite, Call of Duty, Warzone, the new God of War called Ragnarok, and the upcoming game from id Software, who is known for creating Doom and Doom Eternal. I've also made some indie games during my time as a game developer, including Do Animals Dream and the game that kind of put me on the map, which was No Stranger. That was my first indie game, which garnered a lot of positive reviews. So that's kind of how I got inspired to, make game dev my full career. I've also been making a book. So this is a book I recently published called Get Into Game Dev, which helps people who are, I guess, hobbyist game developers go pro. So this is basically helping people to get placed into some of the more competitive jobs in our industry, working on teams, like Fortnite or like the God of War team. And that's my book, Get Into Game Dev. All proceeds, just like the proceeds of this YouTube video and YouTube channel, are going to charity. Okay, the next thing I wanted to show you was, yes, I'm a YouTuber, but I like making content on this platform because I love watching content. I watch so much YouTube, far more than I create, for sure. And here are 3 of kind of the most inspirational channels that I like to watch when it comes to game dev. The first one is called DevDuck on the top left there. And what I really like about his channel is he kind of does a good balance between the work-life relationship. He balances having a full-time job as a software engineer with making an indie game in his free time and having a family and having a dog and doing fitness. So he kind of makes it all work, and I just find that really inspiring because that's kind of one of the hardest things for me, is kind of finding a balance between everything. The next thing is Ghost Town Living. I love this YouTube channel, and this is the story of, I think, a New York banker who, instead of retiring, took his money and purchased a ghost town along with some other investors, some friends. They purchased a ghost town in the middle of America, basically. And within this ghost town, he's trying to revive it. He's trying to turn it into a tourist destination, a historical site, and he's been doing that for years. So the title of this video is actually like 2.5 years living in an abandoned ghost town, and that was a year ago, and the channel is still running strong. So I think what I am really inspired about from that channel is just the duration of the project, like trying to stay focused on something for many years. It takes a lot of time and determination, and I think that those things have been very relevant to this project in particular, because Headhunters has been a long project. And then the last thing I wanted to recommend was just Thin Matrix. I feel like this guy does the perfect devlog video. He does the perfect balance of like showing you the details and then also kind of making it pretty and making it move fast enough that if you don't want to get into the nitty-gritty, you can still just appreciate this beautiful game that's coming together. So those are 3 of my favorite YouTube channels. And then here are 3 games that I enjoyed playing during the development of Headhunters. So I'm currently playing this one on the top left called Slay the Spire. It's a roguelike, and it was pretty influential, frankly, when it came out. It's an indie game, and I play it on my phone. It is amazing for the subway because you don't need a persistent internet connection to play it. So I really enjoy that game. Escape from Tarkov is my favorite game of all time. It's an extraction shooter, and this is easily the most influential game on this list. I mean, it did for first-person shooters what I think PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds did for first-person shooters. It really pioneered a new genre of the extraction shooter, which this game is going to be. This is going to be an extraction shooter game. And then lastly, I wanted to recommend Rainbow Six Siege. I think it's probably one of the best shooters out on the market. I'm not sure if it is the best. I think probably it is the best shooter. Maybe in some ways better than Tarkov. It's different though. It's more accessible, but in the same way, it also provides a lot of gameplay functionality that no other game does. So there's a lot of things I don't like about Rainbow Six, but it is a very good game. And it's been an inspiration early on in this project. Early on, I had based this project kind of more on Rainbow Six Siege. Then Tarkov came out, or at least I started playing it, and I got really inspired by it, and that's kind of what transitioned me into more of an extraction shooter. And then here is the game. So I do have a Steam page. I read online that I should have a Steam page as early as possible, but the truth is if you're not driving traffic to it, it doesn't really make a difference. I think once I have a demo up, then I'll be able to have people start coming to the Steam page, playing the demo, and hopefully wish listing. But as of this time, there's not too much exciting going on there. Basically, it's a good place for you to check out the trailer, which I created for this game. And I am pretty proud of the trailer. I think it does a good job of summarizing the game loop. So without further ado, let's check that out. I think it's about 2 minutes. All right, here's the trailer. So that is the action-packed trailer. I'm really proud of it. I spent like a week on it, and I think it does a good job of kind of getting all the different game elements in there, especially if you're somebody who has not yet played an extraction shooter. But now I'm going to go into a little more detail on what this game is about. So briefly, the premise of the story is that Death, also known as the Reaper, has gone missing. And so now that the Grim Reaper cannot reap the souls of the dead are just walking on the living plane, right? So they're just basically these soulless husks of what humans were. They're zombies. And demons, who were traditionally in charge of, being in hell, controlling the souls of the damned, they're now tasked with going to the overworld and reaping the dead in place of the Reaper. So these demons need to come up to the overworld, find those zombies, those people who need to go to hell, and then drag them down to hell. And so you play as one of those demons who eventually becomes a demon lord, commanding an army, or you might say a militia, or a crew of other demons who need to go up to the land, drag these dead down, and that's pretty much it. And you're competing against these other demons for power and glory. So as an overview, here's some things that you might have seen in the game preview. Basically, you are a player. So up here, this guy named Postmenopa, that is a player. And then you control these crew members. So here there are 2 crew members who are in this player's crew. Okay, and then when you go into the battle, you're going to see on the top left, those are your crew members. And we currently have the top crew member selected. And this is who we see down here in the bottom of the screen. Our other crew member is right over here. So basically, you play as any one of your crew members at any given time. You could switch between them. You could switch to be playing as this crew member and then go play the other crew member, depending on what you want to do. And when you're not playing as a particular crew member, the crew is managed by AI. Eventually, I want to have it so that you can command your crew. You could say, hey, follow me, or go defend this point, or go search over there. But right now, the AI just kind of do their own thing and kind of hang out around you and fight other bad guys. But basically, you'll only be controlling one person at a time, kind of from this higher up 2D perspective, managing the crew, and manually managing a person one at a time. Then, if you defeat somebody, which is the case here, you can take their loot. So in this case, this guy has one pistol weapon that you can drag over to your loot, to your inventory, I should say, and then you can find one of these extraction portals to get the loot out. So you can put, this gun into the extraction portal, but what's unique about Headhunters is that you can also put the pawns, the crew members, into the portal as well. So here's an example. Let's say that you found another player in the overworld and his guys fight your guys and you're able to defeat them. Well, then what you can do is you can take his crew members and drag their bodies down to hell in order to abduct them into your demonic army. So then his crew members will become part of your crew. So that's kind of a unique aspect of this game, is that not only is the loot transferable, but these player characters are transferable as well. They're basically a resource, just like the weapons or other inventory items. You can add them to your crew. And then when you do get back to base, this is kind of what your base might look like. It's here that you can upgrade your weapons, set up your crew, and here eventually you'll be able to do all of the story missions and quests that will be in the game. Okay, so that is a good overview of the game. We're going to now go into some behind the scenes where I'll talk to you about what it was like to develop this game thus far. So here's a preview of the last 3 months. I have worked 40 hours in the last 3 months, or 38 hours, which is honestly not a lot of time. And the reason why is because I've been very busy. I have recently started a new job, and that's required me to sell my house and buy a new house and get a car, and it's been a whole bunch of stuff. So I haven't really been focused on this game. But if I go to the last year, this is a little more typical. I put in about 700 hours over the last year. And, that's mostly just investing time over the weekends. Eventually, I'll be able to, or every now and then I could do a little bit of time at the end of the day, like at the evening. But that is getting harder and harder. So for the most part, it's kind of been a weekend venture for me. And you'll also see here that I have a bar graph which shows the different time or the different topics that I've worked on. So over the last year, I've been mostly focused on the inventory and the UI. And then here is the overall work that I've done. So basically, it's been about 2,000 hours overall that I've contributed to this project, which if it were a day job would amount to about 11 months, though that has been spread out, pretty well over the last 3 years. And here I also have a pie chart where you can see the different sections of the game that I've worked on. So the vast majority of it has been probably on networking and UI, with smaller sections in these other categories. Now what I'd like to do is kind of go into each of those categories and talk about some of the problems I faced with, certain particulars. So the first section of that pie graph that I want to dive into is the UI. And here I want to show you a bit about what my process is like behind the scenes. This is a Unreal Asset Store asset, or excuse me, not Unreal Asset Store. This is a Unity Asset Store asset that I purchased called GUI Pro, GUI Pro Sci-Fi. And so basically this was like $40, and as you could see, I was able to adapt it into my project. So on the left, you could see what it was like originally. You could see, I pretty much kept the concept art, but I kind of was inspired by the concept art to make something that was dynamic and moving and interactive. So you could see that I turned the rain in the concept into actual rain on the screen, and I added this character here to be in front of the loading bar, and I also added this title. I guess, I don't know what you would call this, like the iconography of the game. I hired a Fiverr artist. I commissioned their work on Fiverr to basically, create a cool title image for the game. And then I animated that and added it here to kind of create something inspired by the concept art I was given. And that's, I think, a pretty good perspective on what my process is like, though it is rarely this direct. I mean, there's not a lot going on with the loading screen, so I was able to kind of copy it very similar. Usually, though, you need to do gameplay specific stuff, which is a lot harder. Here's probably a better example. This is the same asset that provided an inventory screen, and you can see this is how I adapted it to my game. So the inventory screen looks a lot different, but I tried to keep the style of the UI kit that I was working with. I also used this asset called Ultimate Grid Inventory, which is supposed to provide the Tarkov-like functionality of their inventory system, but I actually wouldn't recommend this asset. I had to do a lot of coding on top of it to get it to work the way I wanted to, and it's still, frankly, not quite there. But the reason why I show that is because it kind of shows a good example of my process of kind of taking, maybe the visuals of this asset and some of the design components of this asset and combining them. And I'm sure that if you look at either of these assets that I started out with, you can see the remnants of them or the inspiration from them within the final image that resulted in the bottom. So that's a lot of my game design process, is kind of finding two different things I like and trying to combine them in a way that's unique and hopefully, is going to provide, something exciting for the player. And then here's just some inventory reference from some games that I've been playing. This is called Escape from Tarkov, which I had mentioned previously, and this is what their inventory system looks like. So you can see I took a lot of inspiration from them. And then this is another game that I played recently, I think it was this year, called Dredge. And what I really like about this game is that their inventory system is not limited to rectangles. In Tarkov, all the items are only ever rectangles. So you're never going to have those interesting Tetris moments that you do have in Dredge, where you might have a fish that's like a perfect L, and that might be fun to try and sort and fit in perfectly into your inventory, and that is definitely something I want eventually. So I don't have the support for that just yet, because the asset I purchased doesn't have that support, but I'm going to be extending it and adding, the ability to have components, little pieces that are not perfect rectangles, so that it can be, providing those compelling Tetris moments. For the networking side, so this was about 20% of the project, and okay, that is definitely a bit of a misconception, because it's not only 20%. Really, networking has been going into every aspect of this project. There's not a single part of the project that doesn't need to be networked. I mean, everything needs to be networked. So when I say 20%, that's really just when I was only focused on networking, things like matchmaking. But a lot of the UI in particular has to be networked as well. But anyways, what I was trying to say is that networking, I'm using this plugin called Pun, and I believe it is free for up to 60 concurrent users, which is quite a lot. So I think it's a really good option, and I have enjoyed working with that system. I think it's a good asset. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the AI. So I'm currently using this asset called Behavior Trees for Everyone, and it's by Opsiv. And this costs about $90, but I do think it was worth it. It provides a lot of flexibility in terms of creating behavior tree assets for my AI, and this is how I run all of my AI right now. So I am actually very happy with that asset. There's another asset from the same creator called Third Person Controller that I am not very happy with. This asset has been a real pain in the neck to get working. But there's not a lot of third-person controller assets that I'm aware of. Maybe there's like 2 or 3. So maybe try another one. I don't know, get lucky perhaps. I bought it for the full 125, but it looks like it's on sale now for only like 50% off. And at that price, it may be worth it for you to deal with a bit of a hassle. But yeah, it's not a great asset, but that's what I'm using. So that's how I have, all the animations of him aiming his gun and crouching and stuff like that. And then finally, I wanted to talk a bit about the camera. So this dives into that ambiguous kind of 25% other section of my pie chart. There's a lot of work that's kind of just miscellaneous. And what I'm currently working on is the camera. So this is work that I've been doing, just this past weekend. And what I'm currently working on is a lot of things related to the camera. But what this graphic in particular is showing is that the camera will normally follow the player unless they get to an edge. So here, the camera's going up until it reaches the edge, and then it won't go up anymore, which subtly kind of suggests to the player that you have reached the edge of the screen, or maybe not so subtly, but it actually is a really good tool, and you definitely feel like you've reached the end of the world, which can be hard to do in a game like this. The way that this is coded is if you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, this is like a top-down view. The blue here is the edge of the world. And then as you can see, when he sort of gets out of that region, it lets him go a little bit, but then it restricts him. And the red represents where the camera wants to be. So you can see that the red rectangle is going above, but the gold represents where the camera is actually restricted to. So even though the red frustum has gone up, it stays put on the gold, kind of restricted by that blue rectangle, with a little bit of wiggle room. So that's something that I'm currently working on. And this other thing that I'm working on is having the camera scroll when you bring the cursor to the top or bottom of the screen. So you'll see that here, when he brings his cursor to the top, the camera kind of does a look ahead, and it brings the camera up a little bit while retaining the player character on the screen. So lots of little things that can go into a camera. A camera is like its own discipline, frankly. But that is something that I am currently working on. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the workflow. The first thing is that whenever I log on to work on the project, I will use time tracking. So time tracking is a little bit of a tool that I created, and I have a YouTube video on it if you're interested. It's available for free. It's called Simple Unity Time Tracking Tool. And what this does is as soon as I start the Unity project, it will create a new log entry for the next half hour, and I just type in what I'm going to be working on for that half hour. And then if I haven't updated it and I'm still working in Unity, it will extend that time frame. So if I'm working an hour later, it'll bring that time log from half an hour to a full hour. And then I think after 3 hours, it checks whether or not I'm working on the same thing or if I'm working on a new topic by that point. So it's pretty automated, which is very nice. I never have to really pay too much attention to it, but it's what provided those really nice graphs earlier that shows me how I've been dedicating my time and what time of day am I working, how much time am I getting done, and what are the different aspects of the project that I'm making progress on. The next thing is that I have a huge scriptable object that I use for all of my customization when it comes to the game. Like whenever you're making a game, there's going to be a lot of things that you want to be able to tune, and I have this huge scriptable object with its own custom inspector, which is shown on the left here, that I have like basically every variable in the game explained. So if you want to set yourself to invincible, you can just put the checkbox that says is invincible. And then the custom inspector is shown on the right here. There's a little bit of a GIF or GIF playing. And you can see that I can type in a filter, and that will only show the scriptable object parameters that have that substring, which is amazing. I just have to type in, is invincible, and it'll immediately show me the is invincible flag, so I can just click it rather than having to scroll down, because at this point there is quite a lot of variables here. I mean, probably over 200 different variables that go into this game. And then the last thing I believe I wanted to show you in terms of my workflow is automation. So, when I was first making games, I remember having it so that I would have to edit the scene, and then if I wanted to play the game, I'd have to turn a bunch of things off. I'd have to disable this. I'd have to switch back to the main menu scene and then press play. Now that I've grown a little bit as a developer, I've tried to automate that process as much as possible. And here's an example where I might be working on some aspect of the game here in the menu, but I can push go, and this is all automated. What it's going to do is it's automatically going to add some players to my team. It's going to join a lobby. It's going to match make me with a bot, and then it's going to load me into the game. And so that whole process takes about 20 seconds, and it saves me, from having to do any clicks in setting all of that up for the game. So this is really valuable when I need to just jump into the game and test something out. Having that automated workflow is, I think, essential to saving yourself some sanity when it comes to, repeated workflows. All right, now I wanted to speak to you briefly a bit about the timeline for this project. Now, this is a little bit of a joke because I don't have any times really for my milestones. And the reason why is because I'm a hobbyist developer. I am doing this for fun. And I find that when you start holding yourself to these deadlines, it does remove a lot of the fun from it. So at this time, I'm not really setting myself any deadlines. I'm just trying to enjoy the process. But the next big stage for the project is going to be completing the vertical slice. So once I finish the camera, I have good gunplay and variety, and I've completed the loot, sell, buy gameplay loop. I think our game will have completed the vertical slice, and I'll be able to send it out to some individualized play testers and really try to dive deep and understand how I can elevate that play experience so that I can see what's the highest level of fidelity I can deliver at that vertical slice level. Following that, I plan to create a Steam demo, which will be sort of a free version of the game that you can play to give you, again, just a vertical slice, a piece of the game. And in that Steam demo, I think it's essential to have a few more features, which include invasions and NPCs. So currently, when you go into the map, you just fight against another player, and that's it. I want there to be other NPCs for you to fight within the match. In Tarkov, you would call these scavs. In other games, you just call them bots. But basically, these are people who are in the map that you're going to invade and fight. Thematically, these are going to be the zombies as part of the story. These are the soulless that you're going to have to fight. So I haven't yet set that up, but that is one of the aspects that I think I'll need for the Steam demo. The next thing is I want to have invasions. So invasions, right now when you matchmake and you go to fight somebody, it's basically whoever was in the lobby, that's who you're going to fight. But the way it will eventually be is that the longer you stay into the match, the more that players can invade the match and try to fight you, like in the game Dark Souls. And the reason why I think this is essential is because this is how I'm going to gate the player levels a little bit. The noobs can go into the level early, but the pros, if you stay around long enough, someone who's a much higher level than you can jump into the battle and try to destroy you. So you'll have some time to prepare, I guess, for his arrival, but ultimately you might find yourself in a difficult situation there the longer you stay. So I want to have that risk reward where there's pressure for you to escape while you still can, or stick around more for some better loot, but at the risk of fighting some really powerful enemies. So I haven't yet gotten that into the game, but it is something I want to have. Then I guess in that vein, I want to have a match timer. So just for context, the story of the game is that you are a demon and you're coming in at dusk. Basically, when the night falls, that's when the game begins. And the game progresses all throughout the night until dawn. Dawn is when the sun rises, and that is when the angels will come to the land to try and protect the people, right? And so the demons need to basically get out of there before dawn. And if you don't succeed in doing that, there's going to be this really high-level angels who are going to come into the battle, and they're going to kick your butt. So maybe you could fight an angel, but you certainly can't fight an archangel. So that is what the gameplay is going to look like at a very high level, pretty far down the line. So I think the Steam demo is probably realistically, probably maybe the end of this year or mid this year. It really depends on when I can start working on the game again, because I haven't been able to do anything recently. And then it says also here missions. Those are really important. I need to give players a goal and a sort of progression as they are going through the game loop. It's been said that games can often be broken down into arcs and loops, and the focus right now is for me to make that loop really compelling. But once I have a good gameplay loop, I'll have to create an arc, which it means, adding progression so that someone is going to want to play it, for a day and then for a week and then for a month. That's what's going to keep them coming back, is that progression. Okay, and then finally for the full 1.0 release, this is when I eventually sell the game, I'm going to want the additional features of having boss battles, a full tutorial, and demon gameplay. So I kind of overlooked this earlier in my explanation, but as I was saying, you are a player who is controlling these crew members, right? But even though you can control these humanoid crew members to go into the overworld, I eventually want it to be that if you choose to, you can go in as your true form. You can go in as a demon and try and really terrorize these people. So I don't have a good example. Well, I guess the best example of what this gameplay would be like is where in Left 4 Dead, if you've ever played that game, there's one player who plays as the tank, and they alone can take on another team of 4 players. So basically, you're going to be able to go in as the tank, as your demon form, and there's going to be a lot of cool things that happen with that, but that is for a year down the line. I'm not even worried about focusing on that right now, but that is part of the key game vision. All right, and that summarizes it. So thank you so much for watching this little overview of this game, what I've achieved so far, what I'm still working on. I really hope that I get to share the game with you at some point soon. I'm looking forward to putting more time into it as soon as I get some free time. Right now I'm focused on the new job, but when I do get some free time, I'm going to be, working on this over the weekends and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully sometime soon. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. I love talking about this stuff. It's a game that's a passion of love for me, and I really can't wait to share it with you. So if you do want more information, you can go to my Discord, and that would be the best place to reach me, or just leave a comment here. Thanks.